Star Wars fans, and welcome to the latest Jedi Council vlog. I'm your host, Ali, Mr. Contrary himself, and I am joined by my brother in the Force, Dave. Say hello, Dave.
Hello, Dave.
But this time, no mask.
No, I can grab. It's up to you. Wolf, typical clone trooper, Rex, shadow trooper. It's up to you.
It's a huge option, though. I am enjoying your collection that I can see behind you. Very topical, with Mace Windu right in the middle after our last podcast discussion.
Yes, definitely. To be honest, that's one of my favourite figures as well. It's Diamond Select, 18-inch. It's nice. I've got the Hot Toy one there, the Sideshow. Actually, it's not the Hot Toy, it's the Sideshow collectible, so it's prior to the Hot Toys. Probably they're about the same age, to be honest. They're both about 12-ish, 13 years old. But the quality in that one, for a fraction of the price,
right,
is
I'm a little bit shocked because I can see BB-8 in there. I thought with your aversion, he might not have made the cut.
Oh, it's my little Sphero remote control one. I did do a massive overhaul of everything in the display cabinets, and it wasn't deliberate, but I have purged everything from the sequel trilogy other than that BB-8. And it wasn't deliberate. It was just as I was going through it. I've rotated stuff round from storage, and the ones that have ended up in here they're all the prequel and original trilogy, and Rebels. To be fair, there's Rebels in here. There's Solos in here. The Clone Wars are in here. Rogue One is in here. So it's not just. It's not an aversion to Disney, let's say. Just perhaps an avoidance of the sequel trilogy.
Dave, do you know what? We've managed to go on a tangent already, and we haven't actually even managed to say why we're here.
You started.
Quite a well, I suppose it's bang on form for us. But okay, so the reason we're here today is we're continuing our series looking at the films, and tonight we are going to be watching. We're going to be watching episode 6, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's my favourite film in the whole of Star Wars, and I know you don't think that. I think most people don't think that, but I do, and so I'm so excited about it. So, Dave, let's go back to 2005. What do you remember as you were going into the last ever Star Wars, or what we thought was the last ever Star Wars at that point?
I was really looking forward to it. I was. I like the prequels. Revenge of the Sith isn't my favourite movie of all time, but I like it. It's one I enjoy. It's the one that I don't dislike it at all. So it wasn't a case of going in half-hearted. I went in looking forward to it, really looking forward to it. It's the one, I think I might have mentioned this before, where my wife, but Amy's not a massive fan of Star Wars. She never has been. She never will be. But that's fine. We have other things in common. But I remember like heaping her up with food, because the idea is if we keep her happy in the cinema, then she'll come to the cinema with me. And so she had popcorn, ice cream, whatever you drink, and whatever. We went into the cinema. And then you have half an hour of trailers or half an hour of adverts and everything. And Amy's there munching away through everything. And cinema, because it was packed, because it was the last of the Star Wars movies and it was opening weekend and this was it. It was see it now or never type of attitude. So it was packed. It was a warm cinema. And my wife started to doze in the trailer. And so she'd stuffed herself silly and it was like, bedded down with her. She's there starting to doze, thinking, I'm not going to watch this anyway. So there's no point. So you get to the end of the trailers, and then it goes quiet, as always it does. And then you had the 20th Century Fox fanfare. She jumped up, started Mexican wave across the cinema. That was the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. It was just like, no.
So I was yeah.
The people behind us jumped.
Oh man. So I was at university, 21 final year at uni, and everyone was really, really excited for it. And so I went to university in a very small town in Wales called Aberystwyth, and they had one cinema which had 450 people in it. One single tier going all the way down. It had an old-fashioned bar that everyone could go to beforehand. So all the students had had a few drinks. There were a lot of cosplayers in there on this occasion. So many lightsabers. Everyone was going for it. And it was so old-style cinema that after the trailers, it actually stopped for 15 minutes so you could buy an ice cream.
Oh,
it was kind of interval, and so everyone was getting pints and ice creams. And then when the fanfic, I was just like, yeah! And can you imagine 400 rowdy students just come on? And then it goes straight into that scene of the cruiser coming down. You're like, yeah, come on! And like the energy in the room, I've never felt anything like it in a cinema. And actually, when The Force Awakens came out, I wasn't with Aileen at the time, my girlfriend, but I really wanted to go back to the cinema to just be there with these students, just to be like, okay, this is where my Star Wars happens. And it's a shame because I think if I'd enjoyed the sequel trilogy more, I probably would have done that. Just because I think there's no place to watch it better than with cosplayers, people really involved. Like when we went and watched, I know that The Last Jedi is not your favorite film, Dave, but when we went and watched it, Aileen says her favorite moment in a film happened in that film, but not because of the film, but because of the reaction. And I am going to swear so I can dub it out, but literally it got to the scene, you know, where Luke faces up Kylo Ren and someone just shouted out, fuck him up, Luke! And the entire cinema just went, yes! It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I think everyone just screamed, yeah, fuck him up! I mean, it's a very English response to it, but but like it's her favorite moment in a cinema, and I think you only get that in Star Wars. And I think my best ever one was definitely that film. And so, as you said, I think the expectations were slightly odd going into this film because we knew that we were going to see Ian McDiarmid, Chancellor, become the Emperor. We knew we were going to see Hayden Christensen become Darth Vader. We just didn't know how they were going to make that leap. We just had no idea how they were going to colour it in, how they were going to fill it in. I think it's fair to say that this is the most action heavy of the prequels because the other ones had a lot of either politics or accountants. This one was quite a lot of slash from the beginning, lots of lightsaber fights, lots of high energy, which is kind of why I think I really, I mean, I love the politics and that, but I really, really enjoy it for that. So what was your, I mean, it's a long time ago, but do you remember coming out of the cinema, what you thought you'd just seen?
I remember coming out of the cinema. I do, just because it was the last movie I was ever going to see in the cinema. The last time Star Wars was going to be in the cinema. Yeah. So there was that, almost like a come down from it. And I wish there could be more, but it wasn't a depressing feeling, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was the end of what we didn't expect there to be the Clone War cartoons. We didn't expect Disney to ever buy it. We didn't expect George Lucas to ever revisit it in any way. So for us, it was always a case of, from here on out, it's the books and the comics.
Right, yeah. And I think for me, as someone who didn't read books or comics, that was the end for me. And I remember being the good students that we were. We actually watched all 5 episodes. So we watched the 2 beforehand, then we watched that, and the next day we watched 4, 5, and 6. And then I think we went to the cinema and watched it again because we had the time to do it. But but like I just remember the impact on my friends at that time, and just like I watched that trailer so many times. I think I knew it word by word because it's like so good. Anyway,
movie. It is a good movie.
So what do you think? Let's go in terms of storyline. What? Actually, no. We'll get to that eventually. I wanted to say, do you think that this is, because it was George Lucas's last Star Wars film? It's kind of, at that point, it's the end of the George Lucas Star Wars era as we knew it, because Clone Wars did happen when he was there, but it was very much Dave Filoni's as well. They were a
Yeah.
partnership.
Yeah. Yes.
So I felt
he owned this.
Yeah, and I felt this is obviously even though not the best director as we said, George, but he definitely owned this as a project.
Yeah.
And so in many ways, I think it was his goodbye to Star Wars in some ways.
Yeah, yeah. I know he's always talked about it was part of an arc and there would be other stories, but I don't think he ever thought he'd ever do them anyway. So I think it was just, I think for him, this was his final cinema blowout, for want of a better word, in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I think it shows.
Yeah.
Just as you said, it's of the Phantom Menace started off as quite a high octane movie. When you think of the pod racing, when you think of the lightsaber battles that were in there, and the space battle, so it was quite a fast-paced story. Despite there was bits of politics, but it didn't dominate. Whereas the second one, I think politics became too much of that story, and the love story piece was not well managed by George Lucas. And you shouldn't give any hate really to Hayden Christensen. He was a young man at the time. He was a young actor. He needed proper direction. Same as Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman's gone to win Oscars, so Natalie Portman is a great actress.
Yeah.
But she had to carry the scene with a very inexperienced actor. The bits that worked were bits that had Obi-Wan Kenobi in, because he was an accomplished actor by that point. He knew what he was doing. He could improvise when he had to. And so I don't think there should be any hatred for Hayden for that. It was just the fact that George wasn't the best people director. He had the sweeping vistas, and he knew what he wanted to do, and he had the vision. But he got bogged down in bits of the story that didn't need to get bogged down.
Yeah.
It ended on a high with the Clone Wars. The beginning of the Clone Wars. So I think coming into this, there was the expectation: is it going to continue with what we'd just seen towards the end? And for me, it was that. I think that's why it is the fastest paced of the three movies. I think because it moves around and it covers a lot of territory. There is a bit of politics in there, but in this one, the politics is better handled.
Yeah.
I think because you're getting to the end game piece, for want of a better word. He didn't need to try and set scenes, which he tried to do in the other previous movies. This was almost like just ticking boxes, if that makes sense, with the action dominating. Yeah.
And I think now, if you, with hindsight, add the Clone Wars arc we've just seen, but indeed, general Clone Wars, we can see the way that the Chancellor at the time, Palpatine, put Padme into situations to test Anakin. Yeah. And every time he was tested, he was finding his weaknesses, finding out how he could change him to the dark side. And when you see that and put into context the Ahsoka part and that, I think having all that in my mind tonight will be a really interesting experience watching it again.
Well, I'm reading it. I've almost finished it now. The Darth Plagueis novel.
Okay.
And it's called Darth Plagueis. There's a hell of a lot that is really Darth Sidious.
Right.
And it shows the origin of Maul. It shows the origin of Darth Sidious himself. But it's not canon anymore because it was released just before Disney acquired Lucasfilm. So unfortunately, it falls down that little crack where it's possibly one of the most, from a continuity perspective, one of the most canonical novels without being canon.
Right.
But in that, you actually see Sidious manipulates Padme to become queen.
Really?
He puts her on the throne, thinking that she is inexperienced, she'll overreact, because he was also obviously we knew he was manipulating the Trade Federation as well. Yeah. And he thought he would get what he wanted out, and he did ultimately, because she did overreact, and it was what he wanted.
Yeah.
But he had positioned her in that, so he was always this orchestrator of everything that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean,
It's amazing.
there's so many like golden moments for me in this film, because even if you think about the Trade Federation, the way that he says, "I'm sending someone to help you," and then Anakin turns up and slaughters them all, but you were here to protect us.
Yeah.
It's like, that long game. There it is. That's the big payoff, and like that's not even that big of a scene at all in this film. It's kind of like it's a part of it, but
knows what Sidious is like.
yeah.
He used people as pawns. He used creatures as pawns. This was always his long game. It was never about working in partnership with people. They were merely puppets for him to discard as they had ended their usefulness.
Yeah. So let's get on to the sort of main crux of it, which I think is Anakin's journey to becoming Darth Vader for me in this particular film. Though I could see why it would be about the Emperor as well for some people, like because in total, as you and I agree, other people disagree. Palpatine versus Skywalker Saga, but for this, I feel like we saw Anakin obviously really as his last act as a Jedi. We now know that's definitely it. There was no more Clone Wars. That was his last act as a Jedi. To then go and ask to be a spy, starting to be coerced, and having to make a critical decision as to what was important to life. And was it his friends? Was it the Jedi Order? Or was it his wife? And as we've seen in leading up to it, his own sort of self-importance in a way, his belief in being the person who could be a benevolent dictator to people. Because I don't think in his mind Sidious was ever really part of the plan. He was a way to get to where he wanted to go. So how do you feel looking back on it? They had to fit in a heck of a lot in a couple of hours. How do you feel about that journey and the way that it was handled?
I think perhaps this was where the film received its most criticism.
Agree.
Because you get Anakin going into this as the hero and walking out of it as the villain. But the steps are already there, because in a way George Lucas had set it up previously. You'd seen his affection for his mum. You'd seen in The Phantom Menace the fact that he was attached to it. There was too much attachment. He'd not been taken away at the early enough age. So he'd already started to form an attachment with a strong attachment with his mum. And because of that attachment with his mum, he understood, and there's no way you could almost like beat it out of him, for want of a better word, how to form attachments with people. Whereas other Jedi, as we now know, had been taken as babies. And so they never formed the attachment. And then they would have been in a creche managed by Jedi or maybe servants. And then they'd be part of school. It had just been schooling. And there was never an opportunity to form attachments. There was camaraderie with fellow Jedi, but and to see each other almost as brothers or sisters, but never that pure attachment of mother, of wife. And so Anakin had already had that, and he tasted it, and he understood what that affection was. So, and you'd seen that in Phantom Menace. You'd seen it continue across Attack of the Clones. I know we've dissed it to some extent, but you saw his attachment with his mum come to a crashing end when she died, and his anger, and he turned to the dark side and was enveloped by the dark side at that point when he slaughtered the Tusken Raiders. He then transfers pretty much all of that affection onto Padme. So I don't think it is that sudden, because you've already seen the small, almost baby step, or slaughtering an entire settlement, not so baby step in Side.
There was also a deleted scene in Attack of the Clones where you actually see Obi-Wan saying, maybe I shouldn't have trained him because he had that attachment. And sort of Mace Windu's like, no, he's the chosen one. Don't worry about it. Yeah. It's kind of like, oh, okay. I kind of think if that had been in the film, it might actually have made it even better in a way.
I've never seen that. Ooh. Yeah, because that does... maybe they should have left that in.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be in there. Because that's a nice counterpoint to where it goes.
Yeah.
The fact that the Jedi themselves doubt.
Yeah.
Mm.
I like that theme actually of doubt that you're talking about there was also, I think Padme's journey is quite interesting in this, where she's sort of seeing the transformation of the Senate and the way that her role is changing. She always says the very famous line, "This is how democracy dies," with thunderous applause, to the point where she's having a conversation with Anakin about what have you done, what is the future, and in his anger, obviously, doesn't kill her. I've always felt her death was a bit unsatisfactory to me, actually, in this film. I do think it's a bit.
Yeah.
She has died of a broken heart. I mean, okay, but
She had two babies.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. And again, maybe that's just George Lucas trying to tidy up a loose end with Padme, but also misreading the direction of the small detail of people piece. Because that also then leads to a continuity error with Return of the Jedi, where we see Luke and Leia, and Luke is describing that the fact that he has to go face Vader in the Endor Ewok village, and he asked Leia, does she remember her mother?
yeah, I remember.
And she says the emotions, and that she was sad. And it's like, no, she was dead, actually.
Yeah. Do you know, in my head, I've actually retconned that myself, which is a very odd thing to do, to be like, yeah, she's talking about her adopted mother.
Yeah. Oh, well, well, he says real mother. But she's possibly passing on what Senator Bail Organa had told her about the fact that his mother was very sad. And her mother was very sad. And I think, for me, that's how I've retconned that, the fact that she'd been told that from an early age. Because young children, I've noticed that young children, if you tell them something, sometimes they'll actually feel that they've experienced it.
Right.
No, they're not young kids. And it's a case of, no, that was something that we told you. You wasn't even
memory. No, that's really interesting. So, lightsaber battle at the end.
Cool.
I think your favourite one's in Phantom Menace. Is that right?
Yeah.
Out of every lightsaber battle, this is my favourite one. This is my favourite because I feel like you have, in my opinion, and I think other people argue this quite rightly, that you have the most powerful Jedi at the peak of his powers in Anakin versus
the dark side as well.
Yeah, versus ObiWan, who has already defeated Maul and is obviously wizened at this point and is having to use all his experience and not just the Force, but what he knows to really take advantage of the situation, knowing that he is probably going to die, because the chance of him beating Anakin, and we've seen that in the Clone Wars, that Anakin comes and saves him, because we hear it in the film, that time doesn't count, but he's saved him multiple times before. He probably knew that he was going into it the underdog, but he uses all that, and I just think that the cinematography on it and the music and the lava and everything is just, it's like, I think it was, for me, probably from the moment that I watched the original trilogy, that was the moment I was looking for, which was, how did he become Darth Vader? And as you really saw it happening, and you always think, again, how if Obi-Wan wasn't such a good Jedi, he would have killed him properly. He'd have gone back and taken his head off.
Well, for me, that's the bit that's unsatisfactory about that battle.
I do, because I think that's just because he is such a Jedi that to kill anyone who's defenseless,
He's dying in agony.
Yeah.
You would put him out of his misery for me.
But you're saying that
can't.
Yeah.
Even more so.
No, let him live in agony. He'll think about what he's done. Here's what everyone's thinking. I know this. He'll think about what he's done wrong, and he'll come back to the light side.
No. This is Obi-Wan becoming a sadist at the end.
Yeah, I can see that. I thought it was an act of mercy.
No, you put an animal out of its misery, and Anakin had become a wild animal at that point. He killed children.
Hope you're not trooping around Lancashire at the moment, spotting like a poor dog out there. Dave puts it out his misery straight away.
It's what you do with animals that are on beyond saving. And let's face it, Anakin was beyond saving at that point. He had become an animal.
No. I thought that was really good that he stayed true to the Jedi Code to the end.
Children. He had slaughtered children. And instead, Obi-Wan turns his back on him, burning, in agony, his limbs burnt away, struggling to breathe because of the fumes from the lava and all the fact that all his lungs have probably been burnt out.
Yep.
And Obi-Wan is, you can die in agony. I'm going. I'll take your lightsaber, though.
He was saving his children. What a good Jedi.
I'll take your lightsaber as a prize of my success.
I like it. I like that. Can we talk also about the Yoda Emperor fight, which I hadn't realised until very recently, because when you think of the Emperor, he doesn't really fear anyone. But when Yoda turns up, he takes that step back as if like, this is not the fight I want to get involved with. And obviously, you know, in terms of fight scenes, it's very jabby and not as aesthetically pleasing. But was that a confrontation that when you saw it, you thought, oh, wow, we've got the sort of de facto head of the Jedi Order versus the Sith?
I think it was overshadowed by the CGI for me.
Right.
Now, all of the battles in this movie were heavy CGI because that was the big thing of the day, and it was George Lucas was playing with technology as much as he could, and I get that. But I think in a similar way, because Attack of the Clones, I didn't enjoy the final Dooku Yoda battle neither, for the same reason. Okay. You see Yoda walk around with a gimmer stick, and the next minute he's doing 18-foot leaps with somersaults.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm probably going to absolutely contradict myself on lots of things I've said previously, but because I've played as Yoda in a video games by this point, I was very used to that. Like, that's just how Yoda was. He was so short that you'd run around and they couldn't get. Do you remember those games on like the Super Nintendo? It was on PlayStation. Yeah, you couldn't get down to him because he was so small. So in fact, if you were Yoda, you just walk around, spin around, and chop people off. And so when I saw it in film, I was like, oh yeah, it's just like a video game. Yeah, makes sense.
Yoda proves the high ground doesn't matter.
Well, indeed. Isn't that yeah? And isn't there also a scene with Luke and Vader where Luke has the high ground and Vader's just like, not, because I've seen lots of people comment about that in Return of the Jedi, I think it is.
Lightsaber, doesn't he?
Yeah, so it's like, oh, high ground didn't matter there, did it?
No. For me, I didn't dislike the Anakin Obi-Wan battle, and I can see what you're saying with that. But I enjoyed the Grievous one, which, when we're talking about CGI, this thing has 4 arms.
Yes, when you talk about characters who would be really interesting to, I mean, I know there's been books and comics about how his story came to be in that, but this guy just appeared out of nowhere with multiple lightsabers, and the first time you saw him, I kind of thought, how's anyone going to defeat this guy? He's got 6 of them swirling around, and you think, oh, and then he's in a circle sort of move. You probably know the name.
Well, there was also you had the point where this is a great line. Dooku not Dooku. Grievous goes, I have been trained by Count Dooku in your lightsaber styles, and then all of a sudden he turns into this whirling ball of death.
Yes,
I'm trained to do that.
That would have been so cool if we see Count Dooku in a cartoon just turn around and go. But you're absolutely right. I mean, he's a fearsome character. Yeah, no, it's really cool. Dave, we are at half an hour, and we're going to be watching this tonight. So I think if we'd probably love to talk to people about this on Twitter if they want to communicate with us, and they can find us on the Jedi Council Twitter feed or on your feed, Bidbod, me, Ali Clark 84. But I think we should leave it and just sum up for me how you're looking forward to this film and why tonight.
It's action-packed. It's Star Wars at its fastest paced. You never see this many lightsaber battles again in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's Star Wars.
Yeah. For me, it's the last original Star Wars film, and I expect people to disagree with that, but it's the last in terms of original ideas, themes, no
Yes.
repetition, no reliance on old ways. This was going in a linear direction towards an end goal, and yes, we did know what it was, but we really had no idea how it was going to happen. And I'm really excited to watch it tonight with everyone. Really excited to watch it with my girlfriend, who said she wants to watch the whole episode because she knows it's my favourite. And yeah, really looking forward to getting on the old Twitter. So thank you very much for watching this lesson. We have lots of old vlogs. We've got some upcoming ones. Dave, do you want to reveal what your next unboxing is?
I've already done it on my own Twitter account, but not the unboxing piece, but yes, I have recently acquired an A-Wing, Lego A-Wing UCS set, and it has massively changed my opinion of the A-Wing. The A-Wing wasn't one of my favourite ships. I bought it because it was UCS, and I've now got a collection of Republic UCS sets. So,
and is it going to stay as one piece, or are you going to have to disassemble it?
It may have to go into storage along with my other UCS sets.
Oh no! You need to build a shed, Dave. We need a Jedi Council shed.
Yeah.
Jedi Council headquarters.
You can see that shelf there.
Yeah.
It won't fit on that shelf.
Wow.
It's too big. It's because it's too broad and long. It would fill that lengthwise, but it's too broad.
Right.
And it's not as wide as my X-Wing. X-Wing is even wider and slightly longer. My Slave 1 stands up. It probably fills that, but again, I think it's probably too deep to fit on those shelves. My Y-Wing is massive.
So we agree, Dave. You need to build a garden shed in lockdown to store this.
It'd have to be a secure garden shed because I'd be putting in thousands of pounds worth of stuff.
Dave's security camera live streaming across the internet.
Build it as an Imperial bunker on Endor.
Roger. Every time. Okay, well, with that, we are the Jedi Council. Please do watch the film with us tonight, and if you want to get in touch, we told you where to do it. And also, don't forget to listen to our podcasts, which are coming out more regularly at the moment. So, finally, Dave, may the Force be with you.
And with you.